The research vessel Aurora's hope broke. Apart like a toy in a child's angry hands, Dr. Elena Vasquez felt the ship shake and twist around her as it fell. Through the thin atmosphere of Cathara Prime, warning lights flashed red across every surface. The computer's voice kept saying the same thing over and over. Hull breach detected. Life support failing. Emergency landing protocols engaged. Elena gripped her seat as the ship hit the frozen ground. Metal screamed against ice and rock. Something heavy crashed into the wall next to her head. Then everything went quiet except for the sound of wind howling outside. She opened her eyes slowly. Blood ran down her forehead from a cut above her eyebrow. Her left shoulder hurt badly, but she could move her arm. The ship's main lights were dead, but emergency strips gave off a weak blue glow. She could see her breath in the cold air. "Computer, status report," she called out. Nothing. The main computer was dead. Elena unbuckled herself from her seat and stood up carefully. The ship had tilted to one side when it crashed. She had to hold onto the walls to keep her balance. Her medical bag was still strapped to her belt. Her thermal suit was torn in two places, but the heating element still worked. She made her way to the ship's main door. Through the small window she could see a landscape of white ice and dark rocks. The sky was a strange purple color. Two moons hung low on the horizon. Cathara Prime was entering its long night period. In a few hours, the temperature would drop to minus 60 degrees. Elena checked the door's manual controls. The power was completely gone, but she could open it by hand. Cold air rushed in like a knife. Even with her thermal suit, she felt the bitter wind cut through her. She stepped outside and looked around. The ship had crashed in a valley between two hills. Ice covered everything. In the distance, she could see the wreckage of another ship. It was bigger than hers, with a design she didn't recognize. Smoke rose from its broken hull. Elena grabbed her emergency kit from inside her ship. The kit had food for 5 days, water recycling tablets, basic medical supplies, and a small heater that would work for maybe 2 hours, not nearly enough to survive until a rescue ship could reach this remote moon. She walked toward the other crashed ship. Her boots crunched through the ice. The wind made her eyes water. As she got closer, she could see that the other ship was definitely alien. Its hull was dark gray with strange symbols painted on the side. It looked like a fighter ship built for war rather than research. Elena heard a sound from inside the alien ship. A low groan. Someone was alive in there. She found a hole in the ship's side that was big enough to crawl through. Inside, the ship was even colder than outside. Ice covered the walls. Emergency lights flickered on and off. The air smelled like metal and something else she couldn't identify. She followed the sound deeper into the ship. In what looked like the cockpit, she found him. The alien was huge. Even lying on his side, Elena could see he was at least 8 feet tall. His skin was dark green with scales that caught the light. He had a long face with sharp teeth and eyes that were closed. Blood covered his left arm and chest. His breathing was slow and shallow. Elena had studied many alien species, but she had never seen one of these before. She checked her scanner. The device was cracked, but still working. It identified him as Drakmori, a warrior species known throughout the galaxy for their strength and violent nature. Humans had only recently made contact with them, and every meeting had ended badly. The smart thing would be to leave him here and worry about her own survival. Drakmori warriors killed humans without thinking twice about it. They saw her species as weak and worthless. But Elena was a doctor before she was anything else. She knelt down next to the alien and opened her medical bag. His wounds were deep but not fatal if treated quickly. She cleaned them with antiseptic and sealed them with medical patches. He was losing too much blood. She found a vein in his arm and attached an IV line from her emergency supplies. As she worked, she noticed something important. Even unconscious and injured, the alien's body gave off heat like a furnace. His scales were warm to the touch. That made sense. Drakmori came from hot desert worlds. Their bodies were designed to handle extreme heat, which meant they probably generated their own warmth. Elena finished treating his wounds and stepped back. The alien was stable for now, but he would need more help when he woke up. She looked around the ship for anything useful. Most of the equipment was damaged, but she found some food containers and what looked like a personal heater. Outside, the wind was getting stronger. The sky was getting darker as Cathara Prime turned away from its sun. Elena's scanner showed the temperature dropping fast. In 2 hours it would be cold enough to kill her even with her thermal suit. She needed shelter and she needed heat. Her ship was too damaged to provide either. The alien ship was bigger and had thicker walls, but its heating system was broken. The only source of warmth was the unconscious Drakmori warrior. Elena made a practical decision. She dragged her supplies from her ship to the alien vessel. It took 3 trips through the bitter wind. By the time she finished, her hands were numb even inside her gloves. She set up a small camp in the alien ship's main compartment. She put her sleeping bag near the warrior, but not too close. If he woke up angry, she wanted room to run. She activated her portable heater and ate a small meal from her emergency rations. The warrior hadn't moved. Elena checked his pulse and temperature. Both were stable. His body was definitely generating heat, a lot of it. The air around him was noticeably warmer. As the hours passed and the temperature outside dropped lower, Elena found herself moving her sleeping bag closer to the alien. Her thermal suit was working, but its battery wouldn't last much longer. The portable heater was already running low on power. She tried to stay awake, but exhaustion from the crash and her injuries made her eyes heavy. The last thing she saw before falling asleep was the alien's chest rising and falling steadily. At least one of them would probably survive the night. Elena woke up shivering. Her breath came out in white clouds. Her thermal suit had stopped working while she slept. The portable heater was dead. Outside, the wind howled like a living thing. She checked her scanner. The temperature was now -58 degrees. Her body temperature was dropping fast. She had maybe an hour before hypothermia killed her. The Drakmori warrior was still unconscious, but his body continued to generate heat. Elena could feel warmth radiating from his scales. She looked at him, and then at her scanner's temperature reading. She had 2 choices: swallow her pride and fear or freeze to death. Elena moved her sleeping bag right next to the alien warrior. She could feel the heat from his body even through the bag. It wasn't enough. She was still getting colder. The warrior stirred in his sleep. His eyes opened slowly. They were golden yellow with black pupils. When he saw Elena lying next to him, those eyes went wide with surprise and anger. Elena held very still. She was close enough to see every detail of his face: the sharp teeth, the small horns above his eyes, the scars that marked him as an experienced fighter. This was the moment when he would decide whether to kill her or let her live. The warrior's voice was deep and rough when he finally spoke. "Human," he said in accented but clear English. "What have you done to me?" Elena didn't move. The Drakmori warrior was staring at her with those golden eyes. She could see confusion and anger in his face. His hand moved slowly toward what looked like a knife on his belt. "I treated your wounds," Elena said quietly. "You were bleeding badly when I found you." The warrior touched the medical patches on his arm and chest. He looked at the IV line still connected to his arm. Then he looked back at Elena. "You are human," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, my name is Elena, Dr. Elena Vasquez. I am Kethvar of the 3rd Battle Group." He sat up slowly, wincing from his injuries. "Why did you help me?" "Humans and Drakmori are not allies." Elena shivered as another wave of cold hit her. "Because you were dying. I'm a doctor. It's what I do." Kethvar looked around his damaged ship. "Your vessel crashed also?" "Yes, about 200 meters from here." Elena's teeth were starting to chatter. "Both our ships are destroyed. The heating systems are broken. It's going to get much colder tonight." Kethvar stood up. Even injured, he was huge. His head nearly touched the ceiling of his own ship. He walked to a control panel and pressed several buttons. "Nothing happened. Power is dead," he said. He looked at Elena, who was now shaking badly from the cold. "How long have you been here?" 6 hours. My thermal suit stopped working 2 hours ago. The temperature outside is -60 degrees. Kethvar tilted his head. -60? That is not cold for Drakmori. We come from desert worlds, but we can handle much worse than this. Well, it's deadly for humans, Elena said. I have maybe 30 minutes before hypothermia kills me. Kethvar studied her for a long moment. Elena could see him thinking. She knew what he was considering. Drakmori warriors were taught that humans were weak and worthless. Letting her die would be the normal thing for him to do. But Elena had saved his life. Even his warrior culture had rules about debts of honor. Your species is pathetic, Kethvar said finally. You cannot survive in simple cold weather. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no strength. Elena's anger flared despite her fear. We don't need natural weapons. We make better ones. We don't need armor because we're smart enough to avoid getting into fights we can't win. And we don't need strength because we use our brains instead. Kethvar's eyes narrowed. You think your mind makes you strong? I think my mind kept you from bleeding to death, Elena shot back. The warrior was quiet for several seconds. Then to Elena's surprise, he made a sound that might have been laughter. You have courage, human. Stupid courage, but courage. He looked at her shivering form. You saved my life. Honor demands that I repay this debt. Kethvar walked to what looked like a storage compartment. He pulled out a large blanket made of thick, dark material. Drakmori body temperature is much higher than human, he said. Our scales store and release heat. If you stay close to me, you will not freeze. Elena stared at him. You're offering to share body heat? I am offering to keep you alive until rescue comes. Kethvar spread the blanket on the floor. Sleep beside me or freeze in the cold. Choose quickly. I will not make this offer again. Elena looked at the blanket, then at the massive alien warrior. Every instinct told her this was dangerous. Kethvar could kill her easily while she slept. But the alternative was certain death from the cold. All right, she said. Thank you. Kethvar lay down on one side of the blanket. Elena hesitated, then lay down next to him. She could immediately feel the heat radiating from his body. It was like lying next to a furnace. Kethvar pulled the blanket over both of them. Do not move too much during the night. And do not touch my weapons, Elena nodded. The warmth from his body was already making her feel better. Her shivering stopped for the first time in hours. They lay in awkward silence for a while. Elena could hear the wind howling outside. She could also hear Kethvar's steady breathing. Despite everything her training had taught her about Drakmori aggression, he seemed calm. Why were you on Kethera Prime? Elena asked quietly. Patrol mission. We were tracking smugglers through the system. Kethvar's voice was deep and rumbling. Your ship was detected on our sensors. My squadron leader ordered me to investigate. I'm a xenobiologist. I was studying the ice formations on this moon for my research. Xenobiologist? I study alien life forms. Different species. How they adapt to different environments. Kethvar was quiet for a moment. You study how aliens survive? Yes. It helps us understand how life develops on different worlds. And yet you cannot survive simple cold weather. Elena felt her anger rise again. Humans evolved on a warm world. We use technology to survive in environments that would kill us naturally. It's called adaptation. Drakmori adapt through strength and natural ability. We do not need machines to make us strong. But you use machines. Your ship, your weapons, your life support systems. Those are tools. We remain strong without them. Elena turned slightly to look at him. Right now, your natural strength isn't keeping you alive. My medical supplies are, and my knowledge of how to treat injuries. Kethvar turned his head to meet her eyes. In the dim light, his golden gaze was intense. You think your knowledge makes you equal to a Drakmori warrior? I think my knowledge makes me useful, even to a Drakmori warrior. They stared at each other for several long seconds. Elena expected anger, maybe violence. Instead, Kethvar made that sound like laughter again. You are either very brave or very stupid, human. Probably both, Elena admitted. The wind outside grew louder. Elena could feel the temperature dropping even more. Without Kethvar's body heat, she would have been dead already. How long until rescue? Kethvar asked. Elena checked her scanner. My ship sent an automatic distress signal before it crashed. But this moon is in a remote system. It could be days before anyone comes looking. My squadron will search for me when I do not report back. But they may not find us quickly in this weather. Elena nodded. So we're stuck together until someone finds us. It appears so. They fell silent again. Elena found herself studying Kethvar's profile in the dim light. His features were sharp and angular, definitely alien, but there was intelligence in his eyes. He wasn't just a mindless killer like human propaganda claimed. Kethvar, she said quietly. What? Thank you. For sharing your heat. You could have let me die. You saved my life first. I am simply returning the favor. Is that the only reason? Kethvar was quiet for a long time. Elena thought he might have fallen asleep. Then he spoke. Drakmori culture values strength above all else, but there are different kinds of strength. Tonight I learned that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is save the life of someone who should be your enemy. Elena smiled in the darkness. Maybe we're not enemies after all. Do not mistake necessity for friendship, human. When rescue comes, we return to our separate worlds. But Elena noticed that Kethvar's voice had lost some of its edge, and when she moved closer to stay warm, he didn't push her away. Outside, the wind howled and the temperature continued to drop. But inside the damaged ship, a human and a Drakmori warrior shared warmth and began to understand that survival sometimes required setting aside old prejudices. Elena closed her eyes and let the heat from Kethvar's body chase away the cold. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight they were alive and that was enough. Elena woke up feeling warmer than she had since the crash. Kethvar was still asleep beside her, his breathing steady and deep. The emergency lights in his ship had stopped working during the night, but pale sunlight came through the damaged hull. She checked her scanner. The temperature outside was minus 40 degrees, still deadly for humans, but better than the night's extreme cold. More importantly, her scanner detected no immediate threats in the area. Elena sat up carefully, trying not to wake Kethvar. She needed to check their supplies and figure out how long they could survive. Her emergency rations would last 3 more days. She had enough water recycling tablets for a week if she was careful, but water was going to be a problem. Her ship's water recycling system was destroyed. Kethvar's ship might have backup water supplies, but she couldn't read the alien controls. Elena stood up and stretched. Her shoulder still hurt from the crash, but she could move it without too much pain. She walked to the hole in the ship's hull and looked outside. The landscape was beautiful in a harsh way. Ice crystals in the air caught the sunlight and created tiny rainbows. The crashed ship sat in a valley surrounded by hills of blue-white ice. In the distance, she could see what looked like a frozen forest. "You are awake early." Elena turned around. Kethvar was sitting up watching her. His golden eyes were alert. "I wanted to check our situation," Elena said. "How are your injuries feeling?" Kethvar moved his arms and legs carefully. "Better. Your medical supplies worked well." He stood up and walked to a control panel. "I will check my ship's emergency systems." Elena watched him work. His hands moved quickly over the alien controls. Even damaged, his ship was more advanced than anything humans had built. "Water reserves are low but functional," Kethvar said. "Emergency food supplies are damaged, but some containers are intact. Life support is completely dead. My ship has some supplies too, but not much. We need to think about long-term survival." Kethvar looked at her with what might have been surprise. "You think we will be here long?" "I hope not, but we should prepare for the possibility." Elena pointed toward the frozen forest. "There might be ice we can melt for water, and maybe other resources." "Drakmori do not gather resources like scavengers," Kethvar said with some pride. "We take what we need through strength." "There's nothing wrong with using your brain to survive," Elena replied. "Come on, let me show you what I mean." They walked to Elena's crashed ship. The hull was split open, but some compartments were still intact. Elena climbed inside and started pulling out equipment. "Help me with this," she said, pointing to a large container. Kethvar lifted the container easily. It would have taken Elena several minutes to move it alone. "What is this device?" he asked. "It's a portable laboratory unit. If we can get it working, I can analyze the local environment, find out what's safe to eat or drink." Elena opened the container and began checking the instruments inside. Most were damaged, but the basic scanner and chemical analyzer still worked. "You can determine if alien substances are safe for consumption?" Kethvar asked. "That's part of what I do. I've analyzed hundreds of different alien foods and environments." Elena connected her scanner to the analyzer. "For example, I can tell that the ice here is pure water, safe for both humans and Drakmori." Kethvar watched her work with growing interest. "Your technology allows one person to do the work of many?" "Sometimes. Human technology is designed to make individuals more capable." Elena finished her setup and looked at him. "What kind of technology do Drakmori use?" "We focus on weapons and ships. Tools for war and hunting." Kethvar paused. "We do not have devices like this." Elena smiled. "Different species develop different solutions. Drakmori are naturally strong, so you build weapons. Humans are naturally curious, so we build tools to help us learn." They spent the morning salvaging useful items from both ships. Elena's organizational skills impressed Kethvar. She sorted everything by priority and function, creating an efficient storage system in his ship's main compartment. Kethvar's strength impressed Elena. He moved heavy debris that would have taken her hours to clear. But more than that, she noticed how quickly he understood the purpose of her equipment once she explained it. "You learn fast," Elena said as Kethvar helped her set up a water purification system. "Drakmori warriors must adapt quickly in battle," he replied. Those who cannot learn new tactics do not survive long. It's the same for scientists. The universe is always showing us new things. If we can't adapt our thinking, we miss important discoveries. Around midday, Elena's scanner detected movement in the frozen forest. Large shapes were moving between the ice-covered trees. Local wildlife, Elena said, checking her readings. Looks like some kind of large predator. Maybe 3 of them. Kethvar immediately reached for his weapons. How large? Each one is about the size of a human vehicle, probably carnivorous based on their movement patterns. Then we must be ready to fight. Elena studied the scanner data more carefully. Actually, they seem to be avoiding our area. Maybe the smell of crashed ships and alien life forms is keeping them away. For now. But if they become hungry enough, they will attack. Elena nodded. That made sense. She began thinking about defensive preparations. Do you have any weapons I could use? She asked. Kethvar looked at her with surprise. You would fight? I'd rather avoid a fight. But if those things attack us, I'm not going to just hide and hope you can handle all 3 alone. Kethvar studied her for a moment. Then he went to a weapons locker and pulled out what looked like a small energy pistol. This is designed for Drakmori hands, but you should be able to use it, he said. Point and press the trigger. It will fire 5 shots before the power cell is depleted. Elena took the weapon. It was heavier than it looked, but she could handle it. What about you? Kethvar smiled, showing his sharp teeth. He pulled out a much larger weapon that looked like a cross between a rifle and a sword. This will be sufficient. They spent the afternoon creating defensive positions around Kethvar's ship. Elena used her knowledge of predator behavior to suggest the best locations for cover and escape routes. Kethvar used his combat experience to position their limited weapons for maximum effectiveness. As the sun began to set, the creatures in the forest became more active. Elena's scanner showed them moving closer to the crash site. They're testing our defenses, she said, moving closer then backing away, trying to figure out if we're a threat. How do you know this? I've studied predator behavior on dozens of worlds. The pattern is usually the same. Elena checked her scanner again. They'll probably attack tonight when the cold makes us weaker. Kethvar nodded grimly. Then we prepare for battle. But Elena was still thinking. Maybe we don't have to fight them. What do you mean? Elena pointed to her ship's wreckage. My ship's fuel cells are damaged but not completely dead. If we could overload one of them, create a big explosion. You want to use an explosion to scare them away? Predators usually avoid areas where they've seen dangerous events. If we make enough noise and light, they might decide we're too risky to attack. Kethvar considered this. It is not a warrior's solution, but it might work better than trying to fight 3 large predators with limited weapons. After a moment, Kethvar nodded. Show me how to create this explosion. Working together, they rigged one of Elena's fuel cells to overload. Elena handled the technical work while Kethvar provided the physical strength needed to move heavy components. Just as they finished, Elena's scanner detected the predators approaching. 3 large shapes moved through the darkness toward their position. They're coming, Elena whispered. Kethvar activated the overloaded fuel cell and threw it toward the edge of their camp. The explosion lit up the night like a miniature sun. The sound echoed off the hills. Elena's scanner showed the predators stopping, then retreating quickly back into the forest. It worked, she said with relief. Kethvar looked at her with what might have been respect. Your plan was effective. You thought like a warrior but used a scientist's tools. Sometimes the best fight is the one you don't have to have. They returned to the shelter of Kethvar's ship. As they settled down for another night of shared warmth, Elena noticed that the warrior seemed different. Less suspicious, more willing to listen to her ideas. Elena, Kethvar said as they lay down under the thermal blanket. Yes, I was wrong about human weakness. You may not have physical strength, but your mind is a powerful weapon. Elena smiled in the darkness. And you're not just a mindless warrior. You can adapt and learn. That's a kind of intelligence, too. Outside, the wind howled and the temperature dropped again. But inside the damaged ship, a human and a Drakmori had begun to understand that their differences could make them stronger together. It was the beginning of an alliance that neither of them had expected. On the 3rd day, Elena's scanner detected ships approaching from orbit. 3 vessels moving in formation. Her heart jumped with hope until she analyzed their energy signatures. They're Drakmori ships, she told Kethvar. Kethvar looked at the scanner data. 3rd battle group markings. My squadron. He seemed pleased, then his expression grew troubled. Elena, when they arrive, you must let me speak first. Why? Because the squadron leader is my younger brother, Zethek. He does not think highly of humans. Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. How badly does he not think highly of humans? He believes your species should be eliminated before you become a threat to the galaxy. The ships landed in the valley near the crash site. Elena watched through her scanner as armed figures left the vessels. They moved with military precision toward Kethvar's ship. Stay behind me, Kethvar said. Do not speak unless I give you permission. Kethvar, if your brother wants to kill me, and I will not allow it. You saved my life. Honor demands that I protect yours. Elena hoped that Drakmori concepts of honor were stronger than their hatred of humans. The first Drakmori warrior to enter the ship was slightly smaller than Kethvar, but moved with the same predatory grace. His scales were darker, almost black, and his golden eyes held a cold intelligence. Behind him came 4 more warriors, all armed with heavy weapons. Brother, the leader said in the Drakmori language. Then he saw Elena and his expression turned to disgust. You share space with human filth? Zethek, Kethvar replied, also in Drakmori. This human saved my life after the crash. Elena couldn't understand their words, but their body language was clear. Zethek was angry and growing more so as Kethvar explained the situation. You let a human touch you? Zethek's voice rose. You let it treat your wounds. You shared warmth with it. She kept me alive when I would have died. Better to die with honor than live with shame. Zethek drew his weapon and pointed it at Elena. Step away from the human, brother. I will end its miserable existence. Kethvar moved between them. No, she is under my protection. Your protection? Zethek's voice carried disbelief and rage. You protect vermin? You have dishonored our entire family. Elena couldn't understand the words, but she understood the situation. She stepped forward, ignoring Kethvar's warning. I can speak for myself, she said in clear Drakmori. She had been listening to the brothers talk, and her xenolinguistics training helped her pick up basic words. Both warriors stared at her in shock. Elena's pronunciation was terrible, but they understood her meaning. The creature speaks our language, Zethek said with disgust. I learn fast, Elena replied, still in Drakmori. Like you learn. Zethek's face twisted with rage. It dares to compare itself to Drakmori? Brother, this proves the humans are a threat. They study us, learn our ways, prepare to betray us. She used her knowledge to save my life, Kethvar said firmly. And now she knows our language, our customs, our weaknesses. She must die before she can report back to her government. Kethvar drew his own weapon. She will not die while I live. Then perhaps you should not live either. The 4 other warriors shifted nervously. Fighting between Drakmori was serious, but fighting between brothers could tear apart an entire unit. Elena realized the situation was spiraling out of control. These warriors would follow Zethek's orders, even if it meant killing Kethvar. She had to do something. Wait, she said, switching back to English. Kethvar, what are the rules for leadership challenges in Drakmori culture? Kethvar looked at her with surprise. Why do you ask? Because I think your brother wants to fight you anyway. Might as well make it official. Elena turned to Zethek and spoke in her broken Drakmori. You, leader, you, stronger than brother? Zethek's eyes narrowed. I am squadron leader. I command here. But Kethvar, warrior longer, battle more. Elena was making up grammar as she went, but the meaning was clear. Maybe you, not strong enough to lead? The other warriors made sounds of surprise. Elena had just questioned Zethek's authority in front of his troops. Human creature, Zethek said with deadly calm. You think you understand Drakmori ways? I understand. Weak leaders. Afraid of strong warriors, Kethvar grabbed Elena's arm. What are you doing? He whispered urgently. Giving you a chance to fight him on equal terms, Elena whispered back. He was going to kill you anyway. This way it's legal. Zethek stepped forward. Brother, your human pet thinks I am weak. Shall we test this theory? Zethek, this is not necessary. Challenge accepted. Zethek threw down his weapon. Single combat. Winner leads the squadron. Loser dies. The other warriors immediately formed a circle. This was apparently normal procedure for Drakmori leadership disputes. Elena felt sick. She had started this fight to save Kethvar's life, but now both brothers might die. Elena, Kethvar said quietly as he removed his weapons and armor. If I lose this fight, run. Get to your ship's emergency beacon and activate it. Human rescue ships will come eventually. You're not going to lose. Zethak is younger and faster than me, and my injuries are not fully healed, Elena thought quickly. What do you know about his fighting style? He favors quick attacks, speed over power, then use that against him. You're heavier and stronger. Make him come to you, then use your reach advantage. Kethvar looked at her with surprise. You know combat tactics? I know physics and anatomy, and I've been watching how you move for 3 days. The fight began with Zethak charging forward, trying to use his speed to overwhelm his older brother, but Kethvar had listened to Elena's advice. He stayed defensive, using his longer arms to keep Zethak at a distance. His left shoulder drops before he attacks. Elena whispered to herself, watching the fight. She couldn't help Kethvar directly, but she could observe and learn. After several minutes, both warriors were breathing heavily. Zethak was growing frustrated by his inability to get past Kethvar's defenses. Brother, you fight like an old warrior, Zethak taunted. Afraid to attack? That was his mistake. Kethvar wasn't fighting defensively because he was afraid. He was waiting for the right moment. When Zethak made his next charge, Kethvar was ready. He grabbed his brother's arm and used Zethak's own momentum to throw him to the ground. Then he pinned him with his superior weight. Yield, Kethvar said. Never, Zethak snarled. He tried to break free, but Kethvar's position was too strong. Elena realized that Kethvar couldn't hold this position forever. His injuries were still healing, and the fight was taking its toll. Kethvar, she called out in Drakmori. His neck. Pressure point, here. She pointed to a spot on her own neck. Kethvar understood immediately. He applied pressure to the nerve cluster Elena had indicated. Zethak went limp as temporary paralysis set in. I could kill you now, brother, Kethvar said, but I choose mercy. Yield and live. Zethak's eyes blazed with hatred, but he had no choice. I yield. Kethvar released him and stood up. I claim leadership of this squadron. The other warriors immediately knelt in submission. Drakmori culture was simple. The strongest warrior led. But Elena could see the hatred in Zethak's eyes as he struggled to his feet. This wasn't over. You think you have won, brother? Zethak said as he retrieved his weapons. The council will hear of this. They will know that you have been corrupted by human influence. Let them hear. Kethvar replied. I will tell them how human intelligence and courage saved my life. Zethak looked at Elena with pure venom. This is not finished, human. Your species will pay for this humiliation. As the warriors prepared to leave, Elena realized that she had gained Kethvar's protection, but made a dangerous enemy in the process. Zethak would remember this day and he would want revenge, but for now she was alive. And Kethvar had proven that sometimes the strongest choice was to defend someone weaker than yourself. Thank you, Elena said to Kethvar as the other warriors returned to their ships. You gave me good advice during the fight. Your knowledge of anatomy helped me find the right pressure point. We make a good team. Kethvar nodded slowly. Yes, we do. Outside, the rescue ships prepared for departure. Soon, Elena would have to decide what came next. But she had learned something important during these 3 days on the frozen moon. Sometimes the most unlikely partnerships could become the strongest bonds. The human rescue ship arrived 2 days later. Elena watched it descend through Cathera Prime's thin atmosphere, its familiar design a stark contrast to the angular Drakmori vessels. Captain Sarah Chen's voice crackled through the communication system. Dr. Vasquez, this is Captain Chen aboard the Endeavor. Are you injured? Do you require immediate medical assistance? Elena looked at Kethvar, who was preparing his own departure. His squadron had been ready to leave for hours, but he had waited for her rescue ship to arrive. I'm fine, Captain, Elena replied. Minor injuries, but I've received excellent care. Through the ship's speakers, she could hear the surprise in Captain Chen's voice. Doctor, our sensors show Drakmori vessels in the area. Are you under threat? Negative. I'm actually under the protection of Squadron Leader Kethvar of the 3rd Battle Group. The silence that followed was long enough that Elena wondered if the communication had been cut off. Doctor, Captain Chen said finally, please confirm that you are speaking freely and not under duress. I confirm, Captain. Squadron Leader Kethvar saved my life. We've been working together for 5 days. Elena could imagine the chaos that statement was causing aboard the human ship. Humans and Drakmori had only met in combat situations. The idea of cooperation was almost unthinkable. Kethvar stepped beside Elena. May I speak to your captain? Elena nodded and handed him the communicator. Human vessel, this is Squadron Leader Kethvar. Dr. Vasquez speaks the truth. She saved my life after our ships crashed, and I have protected her in return. She is under my personal guarantee of safety. Another long silence. Then Captain Chen's voice returned, carefully neutral. Squadron Leader, we appreciate your assistance. We're prepared to retrieve Dr. Vasquez immediately. That will be acceptable, Kethvar replied. But first, Dr. Vasquez and I must discuss important matters. Elena took back the communicator. Captain, I need an hour before transport. There are some things I need to handle here first. Understood, Doctor. We'll maintain position. Elena set down the communicator and looked at Kethvar. Over the past 5 days, they had saved each other's lives, fought off predators, and challenged the prejudices of their species. Now they had to decide what came next. Your people will want to know everything about Drakmori capabilities, Kethvar said. My capabilities, my weapons, my ship's technology. And your people will want to know everything about human technology, Elena replied. My medical techniques, my analytical equipment, my ship's design. They stared at each other, both understanding the implications. The information they had shared could be used to help their species kill each other more efficiently. What do we tell them? Elena asked. Kethvar was quiet for a long moment. We tell them the truth. That humans and Drakmori can work together when they choose to. Your brother won't like that. Neither will my government. Zethik has already reported to the High Council. He told them that I was corrupted by human influence. Kethvar's expression was grim. I have been ordered to report to the homeworld for questioning. Elena felt a stab of worry. What will happen to you? I do not know. But I will tell the Council what I learned here. That humans are not the weak vermin we believed them to be. That your species has strengths that complement our own. And if they don't listen, Kethvar smiled, showing his sharp teeth, then I will find other Drakmori who are wise enough to see the truth. Elena made a decision that surprised even her. Kethvar, what if I came with you? The warrior stared at her in shock. To the Drakmori homeworld? That would be suicide. No human has ever set foot on Draktar and lived. Maybe it's time that changed. Elena's mind was racing with possibilities. Think about it. If I appeared before your High Council, speaking your language, showing them that humans can be trusted, it might change everything. Or they might kill you immediately as an enemy spy. That's a risk I'm willing to take. Kethvar studied her face. Why would you do this? Your own people will think you are a traitor. Elena thought about her research, her life's work studying different alien species. Because someone has to take the first step. Someone has to prove that our species can coexist instead of destroying each other. You would give up your old life for this possibility? I'd be trading my old life for the chance to prevent a war that could kill millions on both sides. Kethvar was quiet for several minutes. Elena could see him thinking, weighing the possibilities. There is precedent, he said finally. Ancient Drakmori law allows for a human to request trial by advocacy. If a warrior speaks for you before the council, you could be heard. And you would speak for me. You saved my life. You fought beside me. You showed me that strength comes in many forms. Kethvar nodded slowly. Yes, I would speak for you. Elena felt a mixture of excitement and terror. She was about to make a choice that would change her life forever. I need to talk to my captain first, she said. The conversation with Captain Chen was difficult. Elena explained her plan while the captain grew increasingly alarmed. Doctor, this is insane, Chen said. You're talking about going to an enemy homeworld with no guarantee of safety. Captain, the Drakmori aren't our enemies. They're just afraid of us like we're afraid of them. Someone needs to break that cycle. And you think that someone should be you? I think I'm the only human who's had the chance to really understand them. Kethvar isn't a monster. He's a soldier doing his duty, just like you are. Captain Chen was quiet for a long time. If you do this, the government will disavow you. You'll be on your own. I understand. And if it goes wrong, we can't rescue you. I know. Another pause. Doctor, in my professional opinion, this is the most reckless thing I've ever heard. Elena waited. But Captain Chen continued. In my personal opinion, maybe it's time someone tried something different. Too many good people have died in these skirmishes with the Drakmori. So you'll support my decision? I'll report that Dr. Elena Vasquez chose to remain on Kethara Prime to continue her research, and that she was last seen in good health and good spirits. Elena smiled. Thank you, Captain. Don't thank me yet. Thank me if you live long enough to prevent a war. An hour later, Elena stood in the landing bay of Kethvar's flagship. She had transferred her essential equipment and personal belongings to the Drakmori vessel. Her hands shook slightly as she watched the human rescue ship disappear into the sky. Are you certain about this choice? Kethvar asked. Elena looked around the alien ship. The walls were covered with weapons and battle honors. The air smelled of metal and something like cinnamon. Everything was foreign and potentially dangerous. No, she said honestly, but I'm certain that it's the right thing to try. Kethvar led her to quarters that had been prepared for her use. The room was sparse but comfortable, with a heating unit adjusted for human physiology. The journey to Draktar will take 12 days, he said. During that time, I will teach you more of our language and customs. You must understand our ways if you are to survive the council chambers. And I'll teach you more about human culture. If we're going to convince your people that cooperation is possible, you need to understand how humans think. Over the following days, Elena found herself settling into life aboard a Drakmori warship. The crew was initially hostile, but Kethvar's protection and Elena's growing language skills gradually earned her grudging respect. She learned that Drakmori society was built around concepts of honor, strength, and loyalty. But she also discovered that their definition of strength was broader than she had expected. Mental toughness, endurance, and tactical intelligence were valued alongside physical power. In return, she taught Kethvar about human adaptability, creativity, and our drive to explore and understand the universe. She showed him how human weakness could become strength when channeled properly. When they reached Draktar, Elena saw a world of red deserts and towering cities carved from stone. The planet's twin suns blazed in a copper sky. It was beautiful and terrifying. The High Council will see you tomorrow, Kethvar said as their ship entered orbit. Are you ready? Elena looked out at the alien world below. In a few hours, she would stand before the most powerful Drakmori in the galaxy and try to convince them that humans deserved to live. I'm ready, she said. That night, as she had every night since the crash, Elena slept near Kethvar. Not for warmth this time, but for comfort. They had become true partners bound by shared danger and mutual respect. Elena, Kethvar said quietly in the darkness. Yes? Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that you changed my understanding of what it means to be strong. Elena smiled. And you showed me that enemies can become allies when they choose to see past their fear. Outside the ship, the lights of an alien world glittered like stars. Tomorrow would bring the greatest challenge of Elena's life. But tonight, she rested beside a friend who had once been an enemy, knowing that sometimes the smallest acts of courage could change the course of history. The human and the Drakmori warrior had found warmth together in the cold of space. Now they would try to bring that same warmth to two species who had forgotten how to trust. It was the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history, written by a doctor who refused to let fear overcome hope, and a warrior who learned that true strength meant protecting those who couldn't protect themselves.